A homeless man gave me his last $5. Then I learned who he really was. My name is Jessica. I'm 33 years old, and I used to think I had everything figured out. My life looked perfect from the outside. I had a solid job in corporate marketing, a condo with big glass windows, friends who loved bottomless brunch, and a fiancé who looked good on paper. But deep down, I was running on empty, numb, just going through the motions. That was until one freezing Tuesday morning. The air was sharp. My breath fogged up the inside of my scarf. I was late juggling a hot coffee, my phone, and a half-dead brain when it happened. My heel caught a crack in the sidewalk. I tripped. Hard. My coffee flew. My phone hit the ground. My knee slammed into the pavement. "Ma'am, you all right?" I looked up. A man with a long, scruffy beard was standing over me. His hand was out. He wore a tattered army jacket. His face was weathered, but his eyes were kind. It was the homeless man I'd passed 100 times. He always sat at the corner of 7th and Maple with a cardboard sign. Anything helps. Even a smile. That was his message. I'd never really seen him. Not until now. I hesitated. But then I took his hand. He helped me up with a surprising amount of strength. "You took a nasty fall?" he said. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just embarrassed," I said, brushing myself off. Then, to my shock, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. "Here," he said, "to replace your coffee." I froze. "No, I can't take that." "You can," he said gently. "Looks like you need a win today." He didn't say it out of pity. He meant it. Truly. I stared at that worn bill. That might have been all he had. I can't," I whispered. He smiled. "Then pay it forward. When you see someone who needs it more than you, give it to them." Before I could respond, he turned and walked back to his corner. Sat down. Picked up his sign. I stood there holding the $5 bill like it was made of gold. I couldn't stop thinking about him the rest of the day. Not through meetings. Not during fake laughs at the office. He saw me. And what he couldn't have known was, I was falling apart inside. My fiancé, Mark, barely spoke to me anymore. My job felt pointless. And lately, I'd been wondering if the life I had built was really mine, or just something I thought I was supposed to want. That homeless man, a total stranger, saw something in me that even my closest friends didn't. The next morning, I came back. This time with 2 coffees. He looked up, surprised. "Morning," I said. "Thought we could share." He grinned. It was small, but genuine. "Well, now we're even," he said. I sat down beside him, in my dress coat, on the dirty sidewalk, and for the first time in a long time, I felt human. We sipped in silence. Then I asked, "What's your name?" He looked at his coffee. "People call me Joe." "I'm Jessica." He nodded, like he already knew. It became our routine. Every morning, I brought 2 coffees, sometimes breakfast sandwiches. I sat with him for 5, maybe 10 minutes. We didn't talk about sad things. Just weather, news, dogs that walked by. It felt simple, safe. One day I brought my sketchbook. Joe raised his eyebrows. "You draw?" I nodded. "Helps me think." He smiled. "Show me." So I opened the book. Let him flip through it. Drawings of street corners, people, hands, even a dog and a little girl I once saw in the park. He studied them like they were gallery pieces. "You've got soul," he said. I blushed. No one had ever told me that. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out a folded napkin. He handed it to me. On it was a pencil drawing. 2 hands reaching for each other. The shading, the detail. It was beautiful. "You did this?" He nodded. "Used to draw, long time ago." "Joe, this is amazing." He shrugged. "Doesn't feed you, though." "Maybe not," I said. "But it saves you." He smiled again. That faraway smile I was starting to love. That day I was late to work. I didn't care. Over time, Joe shared bits of his story. He said he used to be a teacher, taught art. Lost his place after hospital bills piled up. Couldn't get back on his feet. Said he slept behind St. Mary's because the church bells gave him peace. But the more we talked, the more something didn't add up. Joe was too smart, too calm, too refined. He wasn't just any man on the street. I started wondering, who was he, really? After a few weeks, I started going out of my way to walk past that corner, even on days when I worked from home, even on days I had nothing to do downtown. It wasn't about the coffee anymore, or the routine. It was Joe. Something about him made me feel like I could breathe again. Like the weight in my chest wasn't quite as heavy when I sat beside him. One day, I asked him if he had family. His smile faded, just a little. Had, he said. Not anymore. That was all he offered. I didn't push, but I started noticing little things. The way he stared at people's shoes as they walked by, like he could guess where they were going just by how fast they moved. The way he never begged. Not once. He never asked anyone for a thing. Not even me. One morning I brought him a fleece blanket. It was still cold out and I saw him shivering the day before. At first, he refused. "Jessica," he said, "you don't have to take care of me." "I know," I replied, "but I want to." He held the blanket like it was made of silk. "Thank you," he said softly. "It's been a long time since someone did something just to be kind." That sentence stayed with me all day. That night, I told Mark about Joe. We were eating takeout, watching a movie we weren't really paying attention to. I said, "There's this guy I've been talking to. A homeless man. He's interesting." Mark didn't even look up. "You should be careful." "Why?" "Because people like that, they're unpredictable." I bristled. "People like what?" He shrugged. "You never know who they really are." Funny. That was the same reason I was so drawn to Joe. Because I didn't know who he really was. But I wanted to. One morning, I showed up early, and Joe wasn't there. His corner was empty. His sign was gone. My stomach sank. I waited. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Just when I was about to leave, I saw him walking down the street, slower than usual. He looked pale. Weaker. "Rough night?" I asked gently. "Not the night," he said, sitting down. "I've been sick. Some kind of flu, maybe worse." I handed him a hot coffee and crouched beside him. "You need a doctor," I said. He waved me off. "Been through worse." "No, seriously," I pressed. "I can take you to a clinic." Joe shook his head. "No insurance. No ID. No point." His voice was hoarse. He looked exhausted. I felt helpless. Angry. In my world, people went to urgent care when they sneezed twice. In Joe's world, getting sick was a gamble with your life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face. That drained look in his eyes. So I did something I never thought I would. I called in sick the next day. Then I packed a bag with medicine, soup, and a thick coat I hadn't worn in years. I went back to the corner. Joe was there, barely upright. When I handed him the bag, his hands trembled. "You're an angel?" he whispered. "No," I said. "Just someone who cares." He looked at me with something new in his eyes, not just gratitude. Something deeper, trust. He unzipped the bag slowly, pulled out the coat. Then, under his breath, he said, "Haven't worn a real coat since Boston." I paused. "You're from Boston?" His eyes flicked up. "Was. A long time ago." Pieces started to fall into place. His accent, his calm, his drawing skills, the way he spoke in quiet, deliberate sentences. He didn't belong here. Not on this sidewalk. Not on this street. Joe had lived a life before this one. And I wanted to know what had happened. A week later, I found something. I was walking past the used bookstore on 10th when I noticed an art display in the window. Charcoal sketches. Real ones. Framed. Something about the style stopped me cold. The way the shadows wrapped around the edges. The way the fingers curled in the drawing. It looked just like Joe's napkin art. I stepped inside. "Ask the owner who did them." "Old pieces," he said, "from a guy who used to teach at Emerson." "Haven't seen him in years." "What was his name?" "Joseph Henley." My heart jumped. I pulled out my phone. Searched Joseph Henley Artist Boston. Dozens of results. A former professor. Award-winning exhibitions. Articles from the late 90s photos. There he was. Beard trimmed. Suit and tie. Standing in front of a canvas. Paint on his hands and a smile on his face. Joe, I was stunned. He had once been somebody. Somebody important. and now he was sleeping behind churches and giving away his last $5 to strangers who spilled coffee. Why? That question consumed me. The next morning, I brought him the printed article. Just one. He saw his own face and froze. I looked you up, I said quietly. He didn't speak. I didn't mean to pry, I added. I had to know. Joe took a long, slow breath. Then, without looking at me, he said, I used to be someone. You still are, I replied. He smiled sadly. Not like that. Then, finally, he told me the truth. A homeless man gave me his last $5. Then I learned who he really was.